So hello everybody, welcome. My name is Michael Fortin. I am the instructor for tonight's QuickBooks workshop, Behind the Scenes, and it's great to have you all here with us. I have been a QuickBooks instructor for, probably well, it's more than 20 years anyway, and I have worked with SCORE for, I think, about 15 years, roughly. And we've partnered and taught together workshops all over the state, as far north as Presque Isle and even down in the southern part of the state, Norway area, Portland area. And now with doing these virtually, it makes these workshops available from for people across the state and beyond. So it's been wonderful being able to meet a lot of different small business owners and get to talk about your different businesses and talk about QuickBooks. So I I am not a SCORE mentor, but if you've not considered using SCORE and their getting a mentor and using their resources, I would highly encourage that. They are just a great source of information and education, and it's through their hard work that they bring these types of workshops to you. So but my name, my email address is on the screen. You'll see michaelwfortin@gmail.com. And if you have a question in regards to the material, we covered tonight, please reach out and let me know. Again, that's michaelwfortin@gmail.com. We're actually doing a series of these one-night QuickBooks workshops over the next several weeks. And tonight is the first one, but there is one coming up on October 7th, and then another one on the 28th. And again, there's like different topics. One is about recording income, the other one is about recording expenses, for example. And we would encourage you to sign up for all of them and make use of this. And I always learn from students, hopefully as much as you would learn from me, because it is indeed a collaboration to talk about all the different ways QuickBooks can be used in your businesses. I did see in the chat a question about QuickBooks Online, and yes, I too was having trouble logging in, and I think their system is completely down. I tried on several different devices. So, but we have quite a bit to talk about without using QuickBooks Online. We're just and if for some reason it doesn't come up while we're talking tonight, we can make do with it, and it'll be just fine. There's always plenty to talk about in QuickBooks. So anyway, so thank you all for being here. I'm going to provide the slides after the evening is done. I'll send it to the SCORE office, and they will send it out to all the attendees who were here tonight, a copy of the slide deck, so you don't have to write down every last word that you see. But if you do want to take notes, I would encourage it. It's a great way to help kind of gel the information, and everybody learns a little differently. I always find it helpful to write the things down just to commit it to memory. But so anyway, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to cover tonight. We like this material in QuickBooks in general. If you were to take an entire course on QuickBooks from end to end, it's about 45 hours of classroom time, and generally about 3 hours a week for 15-week period. So there's a lot to it. We don't all I know use every part of QuickBooks and every feature of QuickBooks, but generally it takes quite a bit of time to learn it. So these workshops are just little snapshots of different things. And I know there's probably a variety of experience level out there, some that have never used QuickBooks, and then others who are, long time users of QuickBooks. So this is intended for anybody at any level, and I just hope everybody gets something out of it. So the objectives for tonight are to look at, just real brief, what is QuickBooks Online, especially for those of you who've never used it before. We'll talk about using the test drive, the test environment, which I hope will be up and running soon so we can use it in class. We'll talk about mostly that is kind of the core of tonight's topic is the basic principles of accounting, talking about like the behind the scenes fundamentals of why QuickBooks does what it does. We'll talk about the chart of accounts, generally, how bookkeeping works. We'll also look at how how we enter and store transactions within QuickBooks, and really the mechanics of how that works. And then if we have time, I always my eyes are always a little bit bigger than the agenda, right? But if we have time, we can maybe talk a little about journal entries, but we'll see how it goes. So let's start off just by introducing QuickBooks Online itself, as it is a cloud-based accounting system. It is a monthly fee structure where it's like a subscription. You subscribe to it month to month. And it is accessible anytime, anywhere, from any device, with the caveat that you must have internet access to use it. So it is, if the internet is down, then you are not able to work on QuickBooks Online. So you must have internet available. But besides that, you can have an Apple device or an Android or a PC, any sort of device, like that has a web browser, can all use QuickBooks Online. There are several levels of subscription, like from the simple start, essentials, plus, and advanced, and each one of those levels has different set of functions that it will do. And of course, the higher the level of subscription, the more expensive it is, but the more it will do. Most of the students I work with settle in at the plus level because unless you're a very small business, you quickly realize that you can't do some of the key things that businesses need to do, like track inventory and maybe do some sort of project billing, and if you want to do cash flow planning and things, you have to have some of these higher level subscriptions. But just to give you an idea about roughly how much they cost, the simple start is around $30 a month or $360 a year. And if you add payroll, that adds another $45 a month on top of it. And then essentials at $55 a month plus is $85 a month, and advanced is $200 a month. You'll note that like essentials plus and advanced all come with more than one user. So another reason why a lot of students will use the plus level, because if you run a small business and you have a spouse or a partner, or maybe a small staff, they can assist you with the record keeping functions of the business, and that requires setting up additional users. And then if you have a tax preparer, an accountant, they can do that sort of work in the in their own office. And as long as you provide them with access, a username and password, then they can do that. And you can set up all the permissions about which things they're allowed to see and which things you don't want them to see. So that's why for most people, they really find that the plus level is kind of the minimum, because it also is the lowest level possible you can buy to get the ability to track inventory. So anyway, that's just kind of the basic overview of QuickBooks Online. There are other versions of QuickBooks still out there, the QuickBooks Desktop, QuickBooks Mac, and we won't go into detail on those in this workshop. But are there any questions out there before we go further? And by the way, feel free to unmute your microphone and speak right up if you have a question. There is the chat that's on the bottom of your Zoom screen. You can feel free to use that, and I'll check that from time to time. But if you would like to ask a question, feel free to unmute your microphone. I'm hoping this will be interactive and that you can, ask questions and we can, be totally engaged here together in this. So any questions at this point? I'm going to see real quick, actually, if I can get, because I know some of you mentioned QuickBooks Online was up and running. So I'm just going to see if I can open it right now. So I was just getting the kind of spinning wheel there, the green spinning wheel in the middle of the screen. And oh, it is up and running. That's nice. All right, good. All right. That's great, because that's a nice segue into this next piece. All right, so on your screen, you will see a link for test drive. This is the test environment of QuickBooks. Here, I'm going to paste it in the chat so that you have it. And there it is. So you now have it in the chat. So that link will give you access to it. We're not going to need it for a little bit, but we will later this evening be jumping on to the test drive. The great thing about test drive is that it provides a sandbox for you to play with QuickBooks, and this is the advanced test drive link. There's two of them out there. There's kind of the standard one that's basic, and then you have this advanced one. And the advanced one will give you access to all of the features within QuickBooks. So if you're not a high-end subscriber, you can practice and play with it and see whether you like it or not. But other reasons why test drive is helpful, because you can create transactions, delete customers, add customers, whatever you want to do. It's not going to disrupt any of your real information. And then once you close the web browser, test drive will reset itself back to the beginning state, so that when you open it next time, you get a fresh, clean copy. So it's just a great resource to have. I will say that if you are a subscriber and you try to access test drive, one little finicky thing about it is it may ask you to log in, use your username and password to log into your account. So if that happens, because QuickBooks likes to install all kinds of cookies inside of your web browser. So the best way around that is to take that link and paste it into a different web browser. So if you normally use Chrome, I would suggest slide over to Edge and paste that link, and it should work just fine. Or if you have Firefox or some other browser. The other caveat is it's always best to make sure you use the latest version of web browser, the latest version of Chrome or Edge or whatever you're using. So if you have an outdated version of your browser, or if you're trying to use something that's unsupported, like Internet Explorer, which is now long gone, then it will not likely not even work. And if it does, it probably will act kind of flaky. So it's always better to make sure you're using the most up-to-date version of the software. But anyway, we're going to kind of set that aside, you know, for a minute, and we're gonna kind of talk about just some of the fundamentals of accounting itself. And so, and if this is a review for some of you, I ask you bear with us here, but it is important to talk about, what the whole reason behind accounting and bookkeeping is in the first place, right? And if you asked probably most people, they would be like, well, it's so I can do my taxes at the end of the year. But that's really, that's one reason why it's good to have good records. But it really, it's to be just at a higher level, right? The purpose of accounting is to be able to assess the financial position of the organization. So the financial position of your business, like how healthy, what is the financial health of your business, and how that's related to its debts. So the bills that it owes other people, the loans and things like that. So how healthy is your business as it relates to the money that you owe the people, and to assess the capability that you can satisfy those debts and continue operating by taking like the things that you own of value, assets, right? Things like cash or buildings, property, equipment, accounts receivable, all those things that you have that you own that have value. How can you use those things to pay off the bills that you owe other people? And then whatever's left, the difference between those liabilities and assets is your net worth or your net equity. Okay, it's what's left for the owner. So that comes down into this neat little equation, the accounting equation at the bottom of the slide, where it says assets equals liabilities plus equity. So we're going to just we'll demonstrate this here a little bit in the bit of a whiteboard exercise. So if we remember that assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity, okay, is my equation. We'll use this hypothetical, okay? So I have this brand new lemonade stand that I've started, and so I currently have no liabilities, so I don't owe money to anybody, okay? And I have $100 in my checkbook to start my business. Okay, so my beginning accounting equation would look something like this, right? That $100 in my checking account, $100 in cash, if you will, equals I don't have any debt to anybody, so that's zero in liabilities, which would mean that my owner's equity is the only missing value here. Well, it would have to be 100, because that's mathematically how the equation would be true, right? So I have 100 in the checking account, and that equates to $100 owner's equities. In other words, I have, as the owner, 100% complete ownership over all the assets. Nobody can take that away from me, that old song. So now I'm going to add another component to this. So let's say, as I'm starting off, I have found the Acme Lemonade Company is gracious, and they're willing to allow me to purchase $50 of supplies on account. I'm like, great, that's awesome. So I take them up on the offer, and I purchase the $50 worth of supplies. So adding that piece here, I still have the $100 in the checkbook. That hasn't changed, right? But now I have this $50 liability to the Acme company, which means my owner's equity is no longer 100. It is now 50, which basically says that even though I have the $100 still in my checkbook and it's mine, it really doesn't all belong to me, because some of it eventually needs to go to pay off this bill. Okay, so that's why owner's equity now has changed. So when we talk about owner's equity, we also talk about like rights to assets, right? So who has a right to my assets, and what portion is that? So these are easy numbers, of course, but by looking at this, I can say that I have really only a right to 50% of what I own, because again, the other half is now belongs to the Acme company. Okay, so let's add just one more, and I'll poll the group, right? You can either unmute your microphone or you can type it in the chat. But don't be bashful. You can jump right in here. So let's say I had this situation. All right. Give me your thoughts on this. What is this telling me?
You've broken even?
Spent all your money.
All right, a couple answers. Have I well, it's not really, so a matter of breaking even, right, would be like if my income and expenses were kind of the same, that means I didn't make any money. So it's not it's really not about how much money I made. It's a good answer though, and I'm glad you said it. It's about ownership of assets and like what my financial condition is. So but I think it's along the same lines, right? That here, I'll just clarify it a bit. I have basically, if you read out the equation, everything that I own belongs to somebody else, right? So I don't have any equity, zero equity, right? So is that a good position to be in? I mean, I will say a lot of businesses first starting out, you may even have negative equity, right? If you borrow money from a bank and you have a large loan to like purchase a building, buy equipment, start up a business, I mean, you could potentially owe a lot more than you own, and you could have negative equity, right? So all of this is reported out, right, on a financial statement that's very important to a business called the balance sheet, right? And QuickBooks will create a balance sheet easily. Now, provided that you feed in all of the information it needs, all right? So in order to have an accurate balance sheet, you need to have all of your assets and the value of that in your chart of accounts, and we'll talk about that some more. We also need to make sure all the bills that you owe other people are in there, and that will allow it to do the calculation to find out what the equity is, right? So if we look, at just knowing this concept, you could look at a balance sheet within QuickBooks and get an idea just how well the business is doing. So here, let me jump over here. You can just watch my screen, but this is Craig's Design and Landscaping Services, this test business. All right, so I'll go over to reports. And hopefully it's performing well here as I. All right, and we're going to look at balance sheet right here. Click on it. Okay, as it loads up. Okay, great. So, um, here, let me collapse all these actually. Okay.
Which
So,
version is this you're showing us?
I'm sorry.
Which version is this you are showing us?
Which version of QuickBooks? This is QuickBooks Online.
Yes, but is it the simple, the essential, the plus, the advanced?
Oh, this is the advanced.
Okay.
But the it doesn't matter which version of QuickBooks you use, this report will be the same. And the link that I gave you in test drive for the test drive link is for the advanced, is the advanced link. So you have that. But all right, so in the balance sheet, we can see for this business, we have assets of 23,436 and liabilities and equity also of the same value. And of course, balance sheet means it's in balance, meaning that one side is equal to the other side, like a scale. So that assets is on one side of the scale and liabilities and equities on the other side of the scale, and they're always equal. And QuickBooks will not let you create an out of balance transaction. So it will always be equal. But by looking at this, though, I can get some good information, right? Is that my total assets out of the 23,000, like what's my owner's equity look like? So if I go down my total equity, you can see I actually have negative equity of $7,695 because I have this $25,000 loan, this notes payable, this bill, right? And that is it's probably a new business just starting off. And I'm in the hole. Like I owe more money than what I own for assets. But over time, as the business, grows and earns money and makes profit, then it will turn that negative upside down, hopefully. And we have here just looking at this for just a second, we can get a pretty good sense of the health of this business. If I wanted somebody to buy this business or invest in this business or loan me money, they will probably ask for a balance sheet and they would want to see this financial condition of your business because this tells them a lot. All right, so it's very, very important. We're gonna keep this concept in the back of our mind as we go through this and see, well, how does this relate to QuickBooks, right? My day-to-day operation of QuickBooks. Why is this important to me? Well, the whole idea of having QuickBooks, right, is to get good information about your business so you can make decisions about what's happening, right? And I can't stress it enough. The only way to do that is to put good information into it because QuickBooks is a great tool, but it is only as good as the information you put in. So if you decide that you're not going to load in all your assets or you're not going to bother, or if you decide you're only want to use QuickBooks to just invoice your customers but not keep track of your expenses, or if you use an Excel spreadsheet off to the side to track some things and other things in QuickBooks, none of that allows you to get accurate balance sheet. So you do need to consider everything you put in there needs to be accurate and complete. So let's talk about accounts in the chart of accounts. Before I do that, though, are any questions about kind of the accounting equation, the concepts of the basic fundamentals of accounting? Okay, jump in if you do. Okay, please do. So the accounts and chart of accounts. So the business transactions that you create, right? So as a QuickBooks user, you create invoices and you enter checks, and you may even connect it to your bank account and download those transactions. All those transactions are recorded in several different ledgers called accounts. All right. And you've got, QuickBooks will ask you, how you want to categorize different things. Like, for example, if I spend money and I pay my cell phone bill, QuickBooks wants to put that in a category, right? And put it so that it can group like expenses together so that you can make sense out of it. So, and those categories are called ledgers or accounts, and there's a complete listing of all these different accounts in QuickBooks. The master list is called the chart of accounts, and every account has an account type associated with it. So, for example, we'll look at actually these kind of 5 primary account types. And this is not just QuickBooks, this is in any business. You'll recognize the first 3 right off the bat because we just talked about those 3 in that accounting equation, right? Assets, liabilities, and equity. So those are 3 of the 5 primary account types. We also have 2 other account types, income and expenses, and it's those 5 that make up the general structure of your accounting system. So you have all of these accounts in QuickBooks. Like, for example, your checking account, your savings account, those are going to have an account type. They are going to sit under the asset account type, right? If you have a credit card liability, that's going to be a liability account. If you are recording the income from sales, the things that you sell, right, that's going to be an income account. So all of those different types of financial transactions all have an account they're associated with, and they have types. And if we look kind of further, like these are examples of the account types that you may see. Like, so under assets, you will see bank accounts or accounts receivable, for example. Under liabilities, that would include accounts payable, which is the account that keeps track of all of the money that you owe your vendors, right? And you might have credit cards or loans, different types of liability accounts. So this structure we're going to get into a little bit more as we actually look in the chart of accounts in QuickBooks. So one other thing I want to add to give you this understanding, and then we're going to kind of move away from the fundamentals a bit, and we're going to try to apply it to QuickBooks itself. All right. QuickBooks also is this double entry accounting system. So the word double means 2, right? Double, 2. So it means that every transaction that you enter within QuickBooks will impact at least 2 different accounts in the chart of accounts. And there's also this rule that debits equals credits. So I'm gonna explain those a bit. Let me go back to my whiteboard here. Okay, so double entry accounting. So an example would be like I use the example of paying my cell phone bill. Let's say I wrote out a check or used my debit card and paid my cell phone bill. Okay, QuickBooks behind the scenes, and I'm going to draw a couple of accounting T's, is going to record that transaction as follows, right? I'm going to have my checking account, okay, and then I'm going to have my let's call it cell phone expense account, but it could be called utilities expense or something something of that nature, but let's just call it cell phone expense. So if it's a $500 bill, right, it's going to put a $500 entry in cell phone expense. All right. And it's also going to take $500 out of my checking account, and it's going to record that. So in this little example here, we can see it's a double entry accounting system. Two different accounts are impacted by this transaction. You can have more than two. You could have 10, 15, you can have quite a few accounts sometimes impacted by one transaction. But at the very minimum, you're always going to have two. Okay, so QuickBooks is going to be handling all of the entry. That's what makes it easy to use, right? As the consumer, as the user, small business owner, I mean, we simply fill in transactions that make sense to us. Like, oh, okay, I'm going to enter a check, I'm going to create an invoice, I'm going to enter a bill. QuickBooks will take care of this accounting entry in the background. All right, and it's that we're going to spend some time on today, so we can learn a little bit about the mechanics of it. The other thing that we mentioned here are debits and credits. Okay, so we've all kind of heard the terms generally, but this all has its basis in accounting, right? So every accounting transaction has a debit side and also a credit side of this T. So we're simply going to call it left and right. So if you want to, you can almost refer to it left side, right side, and take out the word debit and credit if it becomes confusing. But that's really all it means. And the basic rule of accounting says that, anytime you enter a transaction in these two or more accounts, double entry accounting system, there is always going to be an equal number of transactions on the debit side as it is on the credit side. Okay, so like in the example of the checking account, I'll abbreviate debit for DR and credit for CR, like so, right? You'll see that I had that $500 payment for the cell phone bill. Well, that was entered on the credit side of the checking account. And because I need to have debits and credits always be equal, I have to debit something. So that debit is entered on this expense account. So you see how debits and credits are always used together. This whole thing is about keeping the books in balance. Picture this whole thing as like a big scale. It's crude, kind of like crudely drawn scale, right? We're going to keep this equal, and the debit side is over here and the credit side is over here. So these always need to be equal, always in balance. So that is how, in general terms, accounting systems work. Okay, it's okay if you're still a little foggy on it. We're going to apply this using some real life examples, and we'll look at QuickBooks, and hopefully we'll see kind of how this works. All right, so just hang in with me, and we're going to keep going on this. All right, so back to my slides. Let's bring it back to reality, if you will, right? So all of the transactions that we enter in QuickBooks are going to be in forms. So invoices, bills, checks are examples of those. Most everybody knows what an invoice looks like and what a bill is, and so they're easy to fill out. Like, if I'm going to sell something to my customer, I'm going to create an invoice. I will sell them something from inventory, and that will create a sales transaction, right? So behind the scenes, QuickBooks is going to make the accounting entry for that. It's going to handle all the debits and credits. Like if I create an invoice for a customer, it's going to create the debit to accounts receivable and the credit to an income account, one of my sales accounts. And it's going to do that. And when I pay that invoice off, it's going to credit that accounts receivable account to reduce the balance down to 0, and it will debit the checking account if I put that money in the bank. So it will take care of all of those things. But from the front side, We just simply record the transactions. Okay. We're going to talk about now the three main components of QuickBooks, and we're going to really focus on forms, lists, and registers. So if there's anything else that you're not quite sure about tonight, I'm hoping that you'll leave with a really good understanding of this concept, because it really explains how QuickBooks works in a nutshell. And so to do that, I'm going to go back over to my QuickBooks test environment, over to test drive. And we're going to take a look at forms first. So I did mention that one example of a form was an invoice. Okay, so we're going to create an invoice and just take a look at it and see what goes into creating an invoice, right? So I'm going to click create. And again, invoices are relatively easy to understand, right? We have to use an invoice when we want to bill a customer, and they are going to pay us in the future for some product or service that we have performed for them. So here's the invoice. I'll choose a customer. All right, let's just pick the first one on the list. This Amy's Bird Sanctuary. So you'll notice that I have a list that I'm picking out of, right? This whole list right here are all of my customers, my customer list, right? I'm then gonna have to select, like, how much time do I want to give this customer to pay? Well, right now it's set at net 30. You see, I have other options. I've got net 60, 15, 10, due upon receipt, or I can even add new payment terms if I want to do that. Okay. Let's say it's net 15. They have 15 days to pay. Okay. I then go down to my products and services. What is it I'm going to sell them? So I click on the first one, and you can see this is a list now of everything that I sell. This is called my item list that I'm pulling this from. All of the things that are in my inventory that I sell. Let's say, all right, I'm going to sell design services. Okay, so far, how many lists have I touched, right? I've got my customer list, terms list, my item list under products and services, so it's 3. Okay, so we can see now that how forms and lists are integrated very closely together, right? They're meshed together to make this transaction work. So forms and lists are so important that they are the 2 of the 3 main building blocks within QuickBooks. Okay, so how does all the information get into these lists? Well, you have to add them as the business owner, as the record keeper. You will set this up, right? You will enter a list of all your customers. You will create a list of everything you sell, and you'll set prices for them. You will determine what kind of terms you want to offer your customers, and so forth. So all of those things, in fact, they're so important. Here, I'm gonna close this, and I'm not gonna save it, but I want to step away here and show you. Lists are so important. I'm going to go up to the gear menu in the upper right hand corner. You can say list has its very own menu, right? There are all kinds of lists within QuickBooks. My chart of accounts actually is the most important list that I have, but I have a recurring transaction list, products and services, product categories, payment methods and terms, right? All of those lists keep track of all of the choices that I have when I create these transactions. All right, so forms and lists working together. So hopefully you can see the importance of how they integrate, right? The third is really at the heart of this behind the scenes discussion that we're having. Because where are these transactions stored, right? Where are they kept? Well, they're kept within registers within the chart of accounts, right? They are not kept on the invoice screen. They're not kept in the sales center, or they're kept in the chart of accounts. So let's look at an invoice that's in here. For example, I have this invoice right here, 8/21/24, Shara Barnett. Barnett Design, $274.50. That invoice. Okay, so somebody already created one. Where is that invoice really kept? Well, we're going to go look right now, and we're going to dive into the chart of accounts and see. All right, so I'm going to go under the transactions menu on the left and slide over and down to chart of accounts. There's a couple of different ways to get to the chart of accounts, but we'll use that one. Okay, and then we'll be looking at this chart in more detail here in a bit, but anytime I create an invoice and bill a customer, all of those transactions are kept within my accounts receivable register, which is the place that keeps track of all the money that customers owe me. So I'm going to view that register, accounts receivable. All right, and there's my register. So now I'm gonna slide down here a little bit, and I'm going to look. I'm gonna kind of go slow so I don't go by it. I see invoice number 1012, 8/21/24, $274.50. So there is half of my transaction, right? We talked about a double entry accounting system. There's always two accounts affected with every transaction. So the debit side, or the left side of that transaction, is here. It's stored in this register, 274.50. In fact, if I were to double click and open this, it will open up the invoice itself so I can see it and bring me right to that transaction. So I can go to it. And there it is. Okay, but I'm gonna close it and go back to where I was. Okay, so there's the left side of this. Now we're gonna go find the right side, of the credit side of this transaction. I'm gonna go back to the chart of accounts. Now I happen to know that design services, anytime we sell design services, we, as the business owner, we have decided that that should be design income. That is the income type. So if I slide down to all of my income accounts, and I can see I'm now in the income accounts group. All right. I see design income here. All right. And I'm going to open up a report. At least I'm hoping that it's here, right? Because the test drive can change. So let me see. Do I find my 270, my Shara? Okay, well, this is August. Okay, no. So it's not. Let me go back. So you say when I sell design income, if I really wanted to know where design services are, I could go look it up and find out what account it's assigned to. Let me see if it's under one other spot here. Okay, design income. No, all right. Hold on. So I'm going to do, just to find out where it is. Yeah, let's go to my products and services that I sell. And I will find design right here. And let's click on it. Design goes to design income. Okay, income account design income. Okay. Well, it says that's where it went. So let's go back again. Design income is right there. Let me also make sure that I'm not filtering it somehow. Okay. Well, we will not waste our time finding it, but the other half of the transaction is in one of the income accounts, which is, it should be design income, but there could be more than one design income account here. Okay, but it gives you the idea that those transactions are stored within registers, and explains that forms and list working together to form transactions that are stored within registers. Okay, so that's the mechanic of this. So those of you who are not in QuickBooks in your chart of accounts very often, like, I would encourage you to take a look sometime. And it's also a great place to find transactions and, you know, like, to evaluate kind of how you're doing thus far, right? So I can tell from the chart of accounts right here, from accounts receivable, I have $5,281 in total that customers owe me right now. That's the balance. And if I were to go into my customer center and add up the balances of all of those invoices owed to me by my customers, it would equal the 5281.52 that's here. Okay, so it's you know, it's helpful to kind of get familiar with this and look at it, and that is something that we're going to do together tonight, hopefully, to get you feeling a little bit more comfortable if you're not already, right? So again, all of these transactions being entered into invoices, bills, and checks, you know, forms like that, and QuickBooks is handling all of the debits and credits. So we are going to take a look at more detail at the chart of accounts. Account types, account numbers, like how to create accounts and sort accounts, and you know, make accounts inactive if you need to do that. All right. When you set up QuickBooks is going to ask you some questions about your business, and it creates a chart of accounts for you based off of the answers that you gave. But over time, you know, those are just kind of general accounts, right? And you will have you know, input into how these accounts are named and how they're organized. And, you know, you should be creating accounts that make sense for you, right? So if I have a cell phone bill, for example, I want to make sure that there's an account labeled as such, that makes it easy for me to figure out how much I'm spending on my cell phone every year, every month, or over time. And so it's important to really know how to manage these things. So in the chart of account, first of all, there's a header that goes across the top of this. Okay. I can click on these different headers to sort them in according to ascending or descending order based on the column So if I want them in alphabetical order, for example, I would click on name. Okay, and it will list these in order from A to Z, or clicking again to Z to A in the opposite direction. Okay, I can also sort them by account type. So it can group like all the expenses together, all the income accounts together, and so forth. I then another one might be balance. I want to take a look and see what my my QuickBooks highest balance account is and what the lowest one is, right? I should have anywhere from 0 up, right? There's some negatives that are there too. Okay, so but if I want to return it to the original order that it's in, right? Account type order is the traditional order. So generally all of my accounts are sorted in groups by the account types. So assets are typically always at the top, liabilities are next, equity accounts, income, and expenses, typically in that order. Okay, so if you go from, and the rules are the same no matter which company you're working with. So if you get kind of comfortable with bookkeeping and accounting, you can move from business to business, and everyone should be doing it the same way. So you understand what you're looking at, that the accounts are generally sorted in this manner. But it is possible to sort them different ways. You can view them, if you can filter them. So if, for example, if I was looking for design income earlier, if I type in design into the search box, it will come up with all of the accounts that match that name, right? Or checking, for example, might be another name that I want to search on, and it will filter it. So it makes it easy to locate things. So it's working on something. There it is. Checking, and then the filter. Okay. So another thing is that I do have some options here, actions next to each one of these. And there's a little arrow I can drop down. I can see there are some things. So if I click on edit, okay, that allows me to edit the account itself, such as the name of the account, the description, what type of account it is, and it gives me some control over these. Okay, so if I have an account that doesn't get used all that often, in fact, maybe it's an account, better yet, an account that I've never used and it's never been used, and because QuickBooks assigns me all of these accounts when I first start up the system. Like, for example, here's one called promotional. Okay, let's say I've never used promotional, but I really want to call it something else, like advertising or something. I could go in and edit this account and change the title of it, and repurpose it for something. So there's that way you don't have to create another new account. Let me see. Let me just check and see if I have any other questions in here. I don't see any. Okay. All right. So there's also a difference in between the different types of accounts. Like, you see, some of these say view registers, others say run reports. So there are differences. The accounts that have registers are the three primary account types that we talked about in the beginning of the workshop. Assets, liability, and equity accounts all have registers. Income and expense accounts have something called quick reports or reports. Basically, the difference between a register and a report are that reports will give you information like one way, right? It will show you all the transactions that occurred, whereas a register, in some instances, will allow you to create transactions within it. All right. So, for example, let me open up the checking register. I can see the balance, $1,201 here. And you'll see that there's an option right here where it says add check right at the top. So I can click that. And now I can create my own transaction, right? I could actually enter in a check or a debit card, or a deposit. Like, I can add a transaction to this register right from here without having to go into one of the forms. All right. I'm going to cancel this, and let's go to the report so we can just see the difference. All right, we'll go down, run report. Let's look at design income again. So I still see a lot of the same information. Like, I see the dates, you know, and the amounts of the transactions, but you'll notice I can't add anything to this. It's just one-way information. So why are some of them registers and some of them reports? Well, just the way the software is designed. QuickBooks really doesn't want you to have the ability to go in and create entries into the income and expense accounts, because they want you to, you know, use the forms, or they feel as though that maybe for some users, especially since most businesses, small business owners, don't have a lot of accounting background, you know, they want to make sure that it's structured in a way so you don't you know, cause the transactions to go out of balance. You know, so it forces you to enter your transactions, you know, in one area and not anywhere. So it's basically, though, however, basically the same information, right? You can run a quick report or use the register and be able to understand what's happening within the account. So so if I wanted to create my own account, you'll see in the upper right hand corner, there's this new button. Go back up to the top. There's a little drop down there, and gives me the option if I had like another accounting system, and I wanted to import that information, or if I wanted to import information from like Excel, there's a way of doing that. But here I'm just going to click the new button. Let's create a new account. Let's say we want to have an account called cell phone expense. Okay, so I'll add in a, whoops, we clicked that by accident, I guess. Some of the, one thing I will say is about the test region, it's a little laggy. My youngest son is a gamer and always talks about latency and how laggy something is, meaning that there's always like some sort of a delay. And the test region is very much like that. It's not quite as peppy as the full paid version of it. So, and they are constantly like making changes to this test environment. So it's like an, you know, they kind of beta test things that they're trying out, I think, at times. So all that being understood, it's still pretty cool to have it. So let's create cell phone expense as an account. We will select this as the expense account type. Okay, and we'll put a description that says what it is. Okay, and then we just click the save button. Now that will now be added to the list. Scroll down a bit to see it. And where it put it, I'm not sure exactly. Right there, cell phone expenses. Okay, so I have created that account. Some different things you can do with accounts is add account numbers. So most of these accounts, because these are all organized using text, right? There's no numbers here. But if I wanted to add numbers, I can go up to the gear menu and I can go into accounts and settings under my company. Let's give it a second to load. It's taking a second. This is what we're talking about, how it's kind of a bit of a delay here, but I'm going to click on the advanced tab on the left-hand side. And you'll see under the chart of accounts where it says enable account numbers, I can click the edit button and I can turn that on and to show them and to save it. So that will assign account numbers to now all of those accounts in the chart of accounts. Okay, so I'll close it. I'm wondering if I have to refresh the screen to see them. Yeah, so here, let me go under and reopen chart of accounts. Let's see if that will now make them visible. No. Well, I'm going to open the register itself. And go back and see if that, I think some of this might be just because of the delay in the test environment. But as turning those on, it will assign account numbers. The whole point of having the account numbers is that it will, you know, if you're have experience with bookkeeping and you would rather have the account numbers are handy because they allow you to refer to a very specific account by the number, because there's no two numbers that are numbered the same. So it can be easier to, when you're talking with somebody, to refer to the account number rather than just the name of it. So, you know, that's just one example of, you know, things you can do to modify this chart of accounts. And actually, if I, you know, to go in and click edit, like checking account, now that I've turned account numbers on, there should be a place for the number somewhere in here. Yep. No. You know, one other thing too, I want to check. I want to do this one last thing. I'm going to go back under account settings. I want to see if it's, may have missed a step. So one other thing to point out is that in some places within QuickBooks, if you make a settings change, you have to confirm that change. Enable, see, account numbers is still off. You look at that. I'll click edit, turn it on, show account numbers. I'm going to click save. Okay, I didn't even save it. Looks still off. Something's not right. Okay. All right. Some sort of issue with the system. So hopefully in the full paid version of the you'll have won't have the difficulties. But so anyway, that is yet another task, account numbers, having those available to you. Some other thing is making accounts inactive, right? So if I have an account, for example, here's one that says, let me find a better example. Let's go down to like lawyer, legal and professional fees lawyer, right? If I click on this, you can see that the little drop down gives me an option. I can edit or I can make it inactive. So making that account inactive will remove it from the chart of accounts. It won't delete any of the activity or any transactions that occurred within it, but it will simply remove it from the list. And it will give me access now to add more accounts, because there is a cap on the number of accounts that I can create in QuickBooks Online. So if I'm running near the top of my limit, what I can have, if I make accounts inactive that I don't use, it can then give me more room, more flexibility to add accounts, right, that I want to add. So all right, so that's just generally some things about the chart of accounts here. I hope that that was helpful to everybody. Are there any questions? Let me just actually pause for a second. And I'm also going to check the chat and see what we have in here.
Michael, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Well, in my live quick online account, I have multiple account numbers showing up, and I have no clue what's going on. Saying that if I have a checking account at the bank, it's showing up like 5 times. If I have a fixed deposit, it's showing up 3, 4 multiple times, and looks like a little bit of a mess with a balance of 0, with a balance of something else. But I guess it's, yeah.
Well, do you connect your account electronically to the bank?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So, well, it's difficult to answer probably to know exactly what's causing that, but most people, and I think QuickBooks Online really tries to funnel people this way, is they want you to connect QuickBooks to your bank accounts so that you can pull all the electronic data from the bank into QuickBooks. And the whole idea of that is it's supposed to save you time and energy of manually keying in all that stuff. However, there are always problems with electronic banking. It's not perfect. And I admittedly I'm a bit old school. I would rather type in all the transactions myself than use electronic banking in most cases, because I feel as though I have less issues overall. That's just a personal preference of mine. But I know a lot of people disagree with me because they probably have never done it any other way. And it also does. Now, if it's set up right, and depending on the type of business and the number of transactions, like, it can work very, very well. But all that being said, is that sometimes electronic banking will go out and pull the same data multiple times, and it will sometimes create kind of a mess like you're talking about. And I don't know if that's what's happened here, but how you can, I mean, one thing is each of those accounts that are in there, those checking accounts, do those accounts, so those accounts don't actually exist, right? They're
Yeah, they are duplicates, showing
duplicates.
up as 0 balance.
Okay. Are there any transactions in them?
I don't think so. If I view register, let me see. It's zero, nothing, blank.
Yeah. You should be able to make them inactive, and
Okay.
I would probably try making one of them inactive
Okay.
and just see if it comes back. Like, and if that seems to work, maybe make them all inactive because it's taking up, because each one of them is taking up room in your chart of accounts. There's no data in there. I'm not quite sure how they came to be in the first place, but
I think it's working out. I am able to make them inactive and they are going away. So
yeah,
thank you. Thank you.
sure, no problem. There's some other things in the chat too, and anybody has a question. Here's a comment from Ray's. Intuit trying to blackmail small businesses. I used to pay. Oh yeah, I understand. It's gone up a lot. So they running out of their options. No, probably not. So QuickBooks, I learned QuickBooks back when it was first started, right? It was all desktop. It's all you had. And over time, the online version, when they brought it in, still wasn't quite as good as desktop. But now they have, over the years, have and this is I'll put this disclaimer out here, right? I am not anybody important. I just my personal opinion and observations, right? So you can take it or leave it. But over the years, Intuit has very clearly, to me, been funneling its customers so that it will force you to the online version. The desktop version has become less available, more expensive. It's changed the subscription model. I used to pay $200, as you say, to buy the download QuickBooks Desktop, and it would last me for 3-5 years before I decided to upgrade. And it was great, rock solid, worked well, easy to use, very powerful. But like many companies, right, Intuit, Microsoft, have all gone to these, subscription-based platforms, and they will sell it, of course, to say that you always have the latest, greatest version. All your information is being stored in the cloud so that you will never lose it. You can access it from any device, and those are all very good features, but at the same time, yeah, the price has gone way up. And now the desktop version, really, they still do make a desktop version, but you have to pay a subscription for it. And so the other option is to move away from QuickBooks and use some other product. And there are other products out there, except the issue is that the majority of the world has now become accustomed to QuickBooks. So if you try to find a tax professional or an accountant who wants to work with you, they almost require you to use like the online version of QuickBooks because that's what they use for all their clients. And so it's that's kind of the situation. But I don't know if that answered the question really. QBO payments. So I say I myself have not used QuickBooks Online payments. They must charge, my guess is they must charge a fee for that. And does any of our class, anybody here use QuickBooks Online payments?
Nope.
Okay. Don't be shy. If anybody does, just let me know. Just kind of curious. Yeah, I'm not positive, but I almost think there was some sort of fee involved in using that feature. And I'm not entirely sure how it works. But I could certainly something to research and could add that as a topic to an upcoming workshop if you wanted to share that in the survey that they send. And I wish I could answer that.
Quick question, Michael. I'm the
Yes.
one asking this question. So as a
Oh.
follow-up, how do you do it then? You
Well,
put
how
the
do how do customers pay normally?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, a lot of businesses now are supporting electronic through Venmo and PayPal and a lot of different sources. So do you connect your bank account to QuickBooks?
I'm thinking of doing it. I just don't know how to do that yet.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So do your customers like let's say you use Venmo, right? Actually a better example is PayPal. Let's say that you accept PayPal and they send you no, even a better example, Square, right? Because everybody knows Square. They use Square all the time. So let's say that somebody pays you through Square and Square sends you the money, right? They keep a portion of that money for themselves for the fees, transaction fees, and give you the balance. So, right, if it's if it's if they're supposed to pay you $10, Square may send you $9.75. I don't know, whatever it is. So if you have your bank connected to QuickBooks, QuickBooks will extract that bank transaction out and it will show up as a deposit in your in QuickBooks, and then that's your payment can then be applied to an outstanding invoice that way. Keep in mind that there's that fee, right? So that they deduct. So you'll want to make sure to record the fee that that Square is charging you, because you don't want to I don't penalize the customer for that, right? Because if they owe you $10, you should post a $10 payment against their account. And there's a way of doing that within the electronic banking center. So most people probably are doing something like that. You could also, of course, if the customer sends you a check, you could just simply go in and receive payments, right? I mean,
You mean ACH? Like I'm thinking with my
like
banks.
this.
Mhm.
So this is not, unfortunately, this is not a full working copy in terms of it's not actually connected to a live bank account. Otherwise, everybody be using it. But if I go into if I connect QuickBooks to my bank account, all right, any sort of incoming deposits into that bank account are going to show up here, and I can then all right, so I like this pending transaction, this books by Bessie, if that's what this is, as $55, right? I can click the add button. I can tell QuickBooks to process that as a customer payment, you know, and that will apply it against a balance that's owed. But you can also go like into the customer center. There's different ways of doing this, and if my customer has like mailed me a check of some kind, I can record that as a customer payment. And like, so if I see like here's this Amy's Bird Sanctuary, right, has this $239 outstanding balance. I just click on the receive payment button, and by doing that, it will open up a payment screen where I can enter in the amount that I've received, and it will put that money in a holding tank in QuickBooks called undeposited funds, and it will that will prepare me to make a bank deposit to bring that to the bank. So that's customer payments can be done that way. But if you're talking about electronic payments like directly and you want QuickBooks to process them, I know there is, I just do not know much about, I've never used it myself, to know exactly how it works and if they charge you for it. But you know, if you contact QuickBooks, I'm sure they'll walk you through that. And actually, it would be good to kind of interesting to see the feedback that if you come to any of our other workshops, and if you happen to call them, I'd love to hear how it works out, to share that with everybody. But
Yeah,
thank you for the question. I'm sorry I don't have the direct answer, but there was also a question in here about can you show us to create an item list and how to add a new vendor. So we do, we are going to be covering that in the workshops coming up. So when we talk about how to record expenses, that topic, we are going to go through all that. Recording and creating new vendors and customers are very, very easy. Just without going into great detail, I can just show you the area that it's in. Right? So within QuickBooks, if I go into expenses, the expense menu on the left-hand side, you'll see vendors. If I click that, you'll see a button that says new vendor right in the upper right-hand side, just like it says new customer in the customer center, and you click that, and that's how easy it is to create a vendor. So, all right. Do we have other videos we can watch? So the idea is that we hope that as many people as possible will join us for the live webinars and ask questions and be part of the audience. So there is not a library of because we do repeat these workshops over and over again, and it's always best to have like fresh new material and fresh audience each time we do it. And so if you would be interested in attending the other sessions, they're short, like an hour and a half, because we're almost out of time tonight. We have these short sessions. You can join in and be part of the group, ask questions, and we encourage you to do that. All right, I think I got just about all the questions here done. So any other questions from members of the class that have not had an opportunity to type one in, or maybe have a follow-up question? Feel free.
Yeah, just to find when is your next class and how can we participate?
Yes, the next one is on October 7th. And that one it's a Monday, just like tonight, from 6 to 7:30. And it's all about recording income. That's the next topic, how to record income. So we're going to talk about recording income within QuickBooks, invoices, sales receipts, and creating customers and all that good stuff. It's
And where do we sign up?
well, how did you I think it's probably in the SCORE website.
Okay.
Did you sign up through the SCORE website for
Yeah,
tonight?
I think it went through SBA to SCORE or something.
Okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
go if you search out the SCORE
Okay.
yep, go to the score.org website, and
Okay.
you under training, if
Okay.
you type in QuickBooks, it should be right in the list.
Thank you so much. I really learned a
course.
lot. Really
Good.
learned a lot. Thank you.
Good. Oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. I'm glad to meet you and to help out any way I can. So
Still, my accounts are not balanced, but I'm hoping after third training, my bank account should be showing balance to the
oh, I
QuickBooks
see.
account. It's always a mess. I don't know why, but it's a mess.
Well, it's something that if you've not really had anybody show you, right, these things can happen, but it is all fixable. It is. There's a way we can get it back up to snuff. And oftentimes your tax preparer, your accountants, people that you work with already can be a good resource of information. But your SCORE has this mentorship program that's just awesome, and they really, really do help people. And I would suggest that anybody make use of that. So I will close out for tonight. I want to thank you all for coming. It's been a sincere pleasure. I know I threw a lot of information at you. In my off time, I am going to look into the QuickBook Online payment option a little bit more, because now the question has been asked, I want to be able to answer that question. But if anybody who has experience on it, you know, and you want to chime in, you can please email me. Again, my email address, michaelwfortin@gmail.com. Michael W. Fortin, that's Fortin @gmail.com. Send me a message, and hope to see you at the workshop next week. So have a wonderful evening, everybody, and we'll see you next time.